Alright, so now that we got our render background completely white on our box, we're going to animate this object by rotating it in its spot. Okay, so make sure you got this bottom screen here, this timeline. If you don't have it, you should have a menu. It might be minimized like this, but if you just drag it up like this, it doesn't need to be too high. What we're going to do, we're going to get out of this camera view. We're going to right click the object, we're going to insert a keyframe for its rotation. That's it, and a little diamond will appear here. Now we're going to, first I should say, after that, before that we should have gone into our output properties and changed our frame rate to 60 frames per second so it moves smooth as. Okay, so now we know that there's going to be 60 frames per second. We're going to give this, let's zoom out a little bit here, we're going to give this 2 seconds to rotate to the back. So we're going to click here, and then we're going to rotate the actual object to 180 on its z-axis. Then we're going to right click down here and insert keyframes. Okay, now the difference between right clicking up here is we can insert keyframes. If we are moving more than one aspect and we right click down here, it inserts whatever's changed from the last keyframe. Okay, so if we go back to this one here, frame 1, we press space, it rotates. Okay, cool. Now if we go back to the last frame, which is going to be 240, change this to 0. Let's insert keyframe down here, out of habit. Now what the box is going to do, it's going to go back. Watch this. Okay, what keyframes do, they insert they take the shortest route they can take. I'm using my hands, but because I've got a mouse, you can't see. They take the shortest route. So instead of 0, we're going to change this to 360. Then we're going to insert a keyframe. So after you change it, you have to insert the keyframe again. So let's go back to 0. Press space, and it rotates completely. That's it. We're going to end the frame count on 240. So as soon as it's over, it repeats, and it's seamless. That's it. It's that simple. If we wanted to change it up and make it drop or something like that, we'd need to insert keyframes of location. So if we say we're going to go to 400 frames, okay, it gives us a little bit more time. We're going to select all these and we're just going to move them there. Alright. And what we're going to do, we're going to give this 50 frames location. We're going to keyframe location because it's the first time we're keyframing location. We're just going to do rotation. We're going to go back to frame 1 here. And let's go up. Let's drag it out of our view so it can be as close as you want. So we go drag it there and we say insert keyframes. And if we press space, it's going to come down and then it's going to rotate. Obviously, we don't want those to drop down. We just want a simple rotating animation. So we're going to go back to 240 frames and that's it. Now to render this, you would make sure that there's 60 frames, obviously 60 frames, because you want it to be as smooth as possible. And you would choose a directory here. If you want it named something, you'd put a naming after here, like a box render. Okay, and what it doesn't actually render a video. It renders a frame by frame animation of the video. Okay, and then you need to use something like Photoshop, for example, to import that sequence into Photoshop and then export it, save it as for web. So we're going to do that now. So I'm going to open up my Photoshop. And you're going to see how messy my desktop is. Well, I've actually already rendered it, sorry, I should say, just to save some time. See my last project. I'm going to go open. And where was it? Where did we render it? I'm pretty sure we rendered it here. Okay. Alright, this is a different render, but it's the same thing. So if we click that, we'd go image sequence, and we'd go open. 60 frames is what we want. We go OK. and it would load it in. Now if we click through here, whoops, get back down there. If we click through here, you see it rotate. Now the quickest way for us to save it is going to be by File, Export, Save as for Web. But first, before we do that, we're going to resize it. Kickstarter is generally 860 pixels wide. So we just change the width. This will reduce the size crazy as well. The size of the file, I should say. We're going to export it. It'll take a little bit to load here. But we make sure that the image size is here. There's no transparency on the GIF though, so we don't need to worry about that. Yep. And we're waiting for it to load. While we're waiting for it to load, let's go to the TMP folder where they exported it. And then we're going to save. Then we're going to go to the TMP folder, which is on C, TMP. We're going to save as the GIF. As soon as it saves, it will close this window down. Go to Explorer, Untitled GIF or GIF, and we have our rotating box. That's it. Thanks, and I hope you learned something through this. If you want me to do a tutorial on something else using Blender, you can let me know. Thanks.